Parshas Lech Lecha. The topic that we're going to call this little mini shir is the blessing and curse of being Avraham Avinu. The blessing and curse of being Avraham. We know that at the very beginning of the parsha, Hashem tells Avraham to Lech Lecha, and Hashem gives Avraham a promise. He says, "V'ye'esecha l'goy gadol," I will make you into a great nation. V'avarechecha, I will bless you. V'agadelah shemecha, I will make your name great. V'yei beracha, you will be a source of blessing. But then God goes even further, and Hashem says that there's a relationship now that will exist between you and the rest of the nations of the world, and that is v'avarecha mevorachecha. Hashem says, I will bless those who bless you, umekalelcha o'or, and as for those who curse you, I shall curse them. V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachos ha'adama, and through you all families of man will be blessed. And I'd like to raise two questions based upon the text of this last pasuk that we underlined. Question number one is the symmetry of the pasuk. The way that the pasuk is formulated in Hebrew is off. It's off for a number of reasons, and you can ask a couple of questions. We're going to ask just two questions. Hashem says, I shall bless those who bless you. For symmetrical purposes, what should the second part of the pasuk have read? I will curse those who shall curse you. But that's not what the pasuk says. It doesn't say, God does not say, I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you. But rather God says, I will bless those who bless you, and as for those who curse you, I shall curse. It's the reverse. Okay? That's question number one. Question number two is the last part of the pasuk that says, "V'nivrechu v'cha," through you will be blessed all families of the earth. That doesn't seem to make any sense in light of what was just previously stated, that there will be some people who will be cursed through you, Avraham. If some nations of the world curse you, and they will be cursed, then how can Avraham be a source of blessing for all the families of the earth? It should only be that you'll be a source of blessing for those people who bless you. But if people curse you, then how can you say that they'll be blessed also through you, Avraham? Do those two questions, is that clear? So we got two questions. Question number one is the language is not symmetrical. And number two, how can Hashem say that all the families of the earth will be blessed if you just got through saying that only some will be blessed through you? The ones that bless you will be blessed, but the ones who curse you will be cursed. Those are our two questions. And they say there's a funny way of answering the second question. The Sfas Emes, they say a story that a child once asked this of the Sfas Emes, the first Ger Rebbe, and he said, "Who's left to curse if everyone's going to be blessed?" And he answered that the Sfas Emes, who was the Ger Rebbe, who a Hasidic Rebbe, he said, "Listen, sometimes Jews curse Hasidim. But if a man's son becomes a chassid, he still feels proud." So it may be that you feel a curse through Avraham, but at the same time you feel a bracha as well. If I bring my son-in-law to shul and he's wearing a shtreimel, I'm not going to be embarrassed. Look at my son with the shtreimel. But at the same time, I can still curse Hasidim, right? It's sort of like a split personality type of view, right? But that's the humorous way of answering the question, you see. Okay, now let's talk about a serious way of answering this question. There's a commentary on the Chumash called the Beis Yaakov, who was the second Ishbitzer Rebbe. He was the son of the first Ishbitzer Rebbe. This was Rav Yaakov Leiner, and he wrote that Avraham came along and really revolutionized society. Before Avraham came along, people were basically cool. Everyone was chilled. Everyone was relaxed. People didn't raise serious theological dilemmas about life, about the purpose of existence, about the meaning of reality, and all of these other things. People were having a good time. Everyone was enjoying themselves. Comes along Avraham, and he stirs up the pot. And he starts to make people start to think about life. Did you ever think that there might be a greater purpose in life than just drinking beer and watching the game? Did you ever think about why you were brought into existence, why you were born? And people start thinking about these things. And as a result, there was a great schism between the people that Avraham encountered in his life. Some people loved Avraham because they felt a sense of being freed from the shackles of darkness that they had descended into in life. And there were other people that hated him because they didn't want to be freed from the shackles of darkness. And I use the term shackles of darkness very deliberately because those of you who've been coming to this class for several months now may recall that we discussed Plato's metaphor of the cave. To talk about, Plato in his Republic talks about the great philosopher king whose role is to liberate mankind. And how do you liberate mankind? Through the world of ideas. And the way that he describes this is that he talks about a metaphor of a group of people who are shackled in a cave, so that all they can see is the back of the cave, and they're positioned through the chains in some way that they can't even turn around to see the opening of the cave where life really exists outside the cave. So their whole life, they think that all of reality is just a series of shadows that they see on the back wall of the cave. They think that that's what reality is. They don't know any better. And then one day, the great philosopher king comes along and frees them and liberates them from their shackles. And they turn around. And some of them actually walk out of the cave and they realize that there's this amazing world outside that's so much more than this world of shadows that they thought was all that existed. And Plato talks about the responsibility of the philosopher king to be a liberator and to do those things which a philosopher king is supposed to do. But in the context of this discussion, there are certain people who are very appreciative to the philosopher king for having freed them from those shackles. And there are other people who would have much preferred being content knowing that all that existed were the shadows on the cave. Because once you emerge from the cave, you can never go back and reshackle yourself once you've been exposed to what real reality is all about. And those of you who may have seen not that we would ever go to movies, chas v'shalom, but if you may have heard about a movie called The Matrix. And the movie The Matrix really was just the first one. The other two were not worth watching, but not worth even hearing about watching. But the first Matrix film was really just a contemporization of Plato's metaphor of the cave story, where you have a world that is controlled by computers, and they use human beings as living batteries. And so everyone's real existence is just to be inside this cocoon and having ideas planted in their mind about what reality is all about. And then someone gets freed from the shackles of that cocoon, and they come into the real world and they realize, hey, there's more to life than just having steak and enjoying the pleasures of life. There's struggle, there's conflict, there's pain. And once you experience the new reality, you may be tempted to say, life was so much more simple when I was shackled in the cave and I didn't have to worry about the pains and the struggles and the challenges. But you also realize there's a part of you that says, I can never go back, because now I know that there's more to life than just being shackled in the cave. And so imagine for a minute, there are people who are a broad spirit, who look at Avraham as being the liberator, as the philosopher king, and really truly appreciating what he's done for them, and exposing them to these greater ideas about God and about life and purpose and meaning and so forth. And there are other people who are resentful to Avraham, and they fail to appreciate what he's done for them, because now that I have this burden, this idea that's been planted in my brain, and it creates this tremendous burden of responsibility for me. Now I have to do something with my life to really realize my purpose and to connect with my Creator and so forth. It's a tremendous burden, and it's bothersome to me. And I think if you look at it in that perspective, take a look now at the pasuk once again. And we're going to repunctuate this pasuk that we underlined for you, pasuk Gimel in Perek Yud Beis. Va'avarecha mivarachecha umekalelcha. That's where you put the pause. God says, I will bless those who bless you and those who curse you. And now we're going to read that with a different punctuation. Mivorechecha umekalelcha aor. And I will curse those who bless you and those who curse you. And that's the way I believe that the Pasuk wants us to read it. That the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu worded it this way is because he wanted to put the people who bless Avraham and the people who curse Avraham back to back in the Pasuk. And he wanted to tell us as follows, that Avraham, everyone's going to be blessed through you, because you will be the great philosopher king who liberates mankind from the shackles of darkness. Some people will bless you and some people will curse you. And I will bless both groups of people, and I will curse both groups of people. Because the people who bless you, who truly appreciate the blessing that you have done for them to liberate them, they'll feel a sense of blessing. And even the people who curse you will also realize that ultimately, knowledge is power, even though they'll curse you still at the same time. And also, even those who appreciate what you've done for them, that you've given them a blessing, God says they will have that burden to bear nonetheless, and that's the curse that we will have through having been liberated by the great philosopher king of Avraham Avinu. And that's why the end of the pasuk says, "V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachos adamai." Invariably, everyone will be blessed because of you, because you will have been the great liberator. So no matter what, whether people curse you or bless you because of it, it'll ultimately be a blessing for everybody, even for those who curse you. And that's how I think that's what the Beis Yaakov says is the way that you're supposed to read the pasuk. Now, when you think about this, you realize that this is really the key to the interaction that we have in the world and that we've had with the world for centuries. The interaction that the Jewish people have had with the world is a love-hate relationship based upon the very first promise made to Avraham Avinu. Is that the world's going to love you and is going to hate you all at the same time. The world's going to love you and appreciate you because you've given birth to their Christ, and the world's going to scorn you and hate you because you've given birth to their Christ. You understand that? In other words, they love us because they've given us this sense of, we've given them this sense of purpose and meaning and religion and of the ability to connect with something transcendent in their lives. But they also hate us at the same time and resent us for having given us this, for us having given them this burden. And that's why you note that the world today, especially when they focus on the Jewish people via the state of Israel, the two are inseparable. Anyone who suggests that you can be an anti-Zionist without being an anti-Semite is lying. They're lying to themselves and lying to the world. But what is anti-Zionism all about? It's about the fact that you've given us this sense of conscience. We don't know what to do with it, and we resent it so much that we're going to throw it back in your face and tell you that we are more moral than you are. And that's why there's this hyper-criticism of the state of Israel when every single country in the Middle East around Israel is committing atrocities, and yet you can still look at the state of Israel for being this terrible oppressor because of a blockade into Gaza. Does it make sense? I mean, is this can we appreciate why the world behaves in the way that they do based on this first pasuk that Hashem says to Avraham? It's the love-hate relationship that the world has with the Jewish people because of the gift that we have given to the world, the gift that is also a curse.
But what about expectations? Isn't the expectations that we are going to be much more than what we are?
Now, that doesn't mean that none of the criticism is valid. Obviously, we have to listen to the criticism and be selective and see what is valid criticism and what is hypercriticism. I'm not suggesting that we're doing everything right. I'm just saying that in trying to understand the psychology of those who would send a flotilla to Gaza, instead of trying to save the oppressed of Syria, right? After 30,000 Syrians have been murdered in the streets, it's very clear now why that is, why people have this tunnel vision and stay fixated on the state of Israel. So, you see even the undertones of this in even the warfare that Avraham Avinu commits. Because after Avraham Avinu has waged the battle with the four kings, he is very concerned about what world opinion is going to be about him. It's for the very same reason, because he realizes that he has awakened within mankind the sense of morality and the sense of purpose. And therefore, everything that I do is going to be carefully scrutinized, because I've introduced conscience to the world of humanity. And that's why you see in Perek Tes Vav, in the very first pasuk, it says, "Achar hadivarim ha'ela hayadavar Hashem el Avram b'machaz lemor," that after Avraham fights the war with the kings and frees his nephew Lot, the Torah tells us that Hashem appears to Avraham in a vision, and he says to him, "Al tira Avram, don't be scared, Avram. Anochi magen lach secharacha harbei ma'od. I'll protect you. Your reward will be great." And the Medrash Tanchuma just points out, and Rashi actually points this out as well, but the Medrash points it out even further, that the Medrash asks, "Umimi hayam yityareh?" Who was Avram scared of? That God has to reassure him and tell him, don't be afraid. Don't be scared, Avram. So it tells us, min shem shaharages banav, that Avram was scared of Shem, the father of the various different city-states that Avram had killed. He had waged war with these people, and his army wiped out the other armies. And so here you have Shem, who's sort of like the father of the nations, of all of the Semitic nations, and Avram is concerned. Look at what the repercussions against me are going to be. And Hashem tells him, no, don't be scared, because Shem is a tzaddik, and he appreciates what you are doing, and therefore he's not going to curse you. And a tzaddik who sees the Jewish people acting in self-defense and to be able to protect their borders and to be able to protect their people is not going to curse the Jewish people. Who will curse the Jewish people? Someone who has an agenda and is disturbed by the conscience that the Jewish people have introduced to mankind. Those are the people who are going to curse. So I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned about those who curse us. We should carefully listen to those who curse us and listen to what they're saying and try to discern whether there's truth to those curses. We should take the hypercriticism together with the criticism and listen to it and see if there's reality there. And perhaps there is something more that we need to be doing. But at the same time, appreciate the fact that it is hypercriticism, and that it is precisely because of the gift that we have given to the world that there are those in the world who will curse us because of that blessing that we have provided, because of the liberation that we provided to the world. Yes?
Did Avraham know that he was going to have this huge impact on the world forever?
At some point he probably did. Hashem told him he would. Hashem told him that he was going to be the source of blessing to all the world, to the entire world. So he knew he had this great monumental task before him. He accepted the task with tremendous humility, however, and showed a tremendous love to every single human being. We have to emulate that as well. Realize that the task is monumental, but do it with humility and with a sense of affection and care to every person that we interact with in the world. Yes?
I don't know, I haven't seen the exact text in Hebrew, but with respect to his children, Ishmael and Yitzhak, when Hashem tells him this about the bracha and the curse, when he's blessing him and telling him what will be, where does Ishmael stand in the picture here? Is he not considered in this blessing? Because the Muslims could say, well, this blessing is through us. Ishmael is Abraham's son. So where does it specifically say that this blessing and curse will be because of you and so forth? Does it specifically say that it refers to Abraham through his son Isaac?
You're asking on Pasuk Bet, not on Pasuk Gimel. Pasuk Bet talks about making Abraham into a great nation, and that he will be a source of blessing as the great nation that is descended from him. Where do we see that this refers to Yitzchak and not to Yishmael? Later on in the Parsha. You'll have to read a little bit further, where Hashem says, I guarantee you that through Yitzchak, Kivi Yitzchak yikarei lecha zara, that through Yitzchak shall your family be known. And this is in this week's Parsha later on, and also in Parshat Vayera, which is next week's Parsha. But Hashem is very clear to Avraham. Of course, if you follow the Quran, you realize that the Bible is corrupted, and therefore we're meant to say Yishmael when it said Yitzchak, but we don't accept that. Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody.